And now, it's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law.
In today's show, we're going to talk about spouses and support, and for children as well. That's a big topic, and it's going to take up the whole show. So is there a definition of a spouse when it comes to family law?
Well, the main one, of course, is legally married. Mm-hmm. So when you're legally married, automatically you are a spouse. And your rights as a spouse begin the minute you say I do. And you signed off and you got your marriage certificate. Then, of course, there's the common law spouse, and I'll pass over to Sarah to take care of that one.
So that is two people who have lived in a marriage-like relationship for 2 years or more. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are confused about when that starts, and there are different factors that can be looked at because some people live in different setups than other people. It doesn't necessarily mean just because you're living together.
So marriage-like means in a relationship or just living under the same roof?
Well, it can depend. There are situations where people might live in two separate places for whatever reason. That's one of the factors. There's actually a number of factors that the court can look at, such as, do they represent themselves as a couple to other people? Would other people say, yes, they're a couple together? Do they take vacations together? Do they share a room together? Do they act as a couple out in the general public?
So if you have a couple that's been dating for 4 or 5 years, but they still have their own separate apartments, for example, under the eyes of the law, their common law, even though they have separate abodes?
It would depend on a lot of factors. Likelihood in that they wouldn't be, unless they've said to each other, we're actually living together, but we've kept our separate addresses for whatever reason. It's a tough and very factually oriented area.
Yeah.
Because there are people that you think that there's no way they're a couple, and yet they're deemed that they actually were living together, and others that they might have been, but then they separated on, say the 23rd month and the 25th day, and they're not together anymore. Mm-hmm. So, and of course you can separate and get back together a month later, and you think my clock starts again, but the court may say, well, you really were still together, you're still mutually supporting and such. So it's very fact-driven.
Now, what about somebody that's sort of an aide for somebody for many years, who lives in their house and is intertwined in their day-to-day operations, and is there any compensation for those people?
If there is, in that situation, in my view, if there's a contract that you're paying them to take care of you, then it's likely not going to be a common law situation. But of course, there's other factors that could kick in.
Well, say they weren't paid, but that person was allowed to live in the house for free during that time.
I guess it would, again, very fact-driven. It would seem to me that they probably wouldn't be, although it could easily turn itself into a common law relationship at some point in the time. And as Sarah said, it's when does it start? Well, even if you've been together for 25 months, it's actually deemed, doesn't start in the 24th month that you become common law. They actually, in effect, backdate it. So it's a 2-year relationship then. So it's a very difficult area at times to determine. And so the best situation if someone has a care aide or something living with them is actually have a written contract that says that we're not living together and that you are living in this home as a result of your
employment.
Exactly.